Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Chakravarti, for a very lively introduction. I'm sure I don't deserve all the words that you said. Thanks for a very thought-provoking presentation too, to set the preamble to this session. So, the first session was all about design. So design is it's more knowledge work, it's about thought work. But normally designers spend a lot of time, create mock-ups and proofs, and it gets delayed in the process, and then it actually comes to conversion, and then guys like us in the paperboard business and the printer converters have to work overtime to actually make up for the time lost in the previous session. So we're actually doing that in practice today. So design, conversion, you had a live example of what happens during design, and now you're going to see what happens during conversion. We make up for that. Right, so this is the short agenda, so nothing different here. Packaging design and implications with the previous session has covered, some functions, case studies, which I'll spend a bit of time on, and how paperboards are changing. So what is holistic package design? I mean, this is like the human brain that you have. There's a left and right side to it. I think Mr. Sengupta covered it very well, and so did Bakula. So there is a rational and functional side to the whole choice of packaging, and then there is also an emotive side. So the right side reflects the imaginative or creative side of packaging, or the emotional side of it. And the left to you represent the rational and functional side, which is more the technological and other market distribution factors which, impact on packaging design. This has been covered in the previous session, so I'll just skip through it. What does this mean for us? So this is a bit more important. So, you are going through sourcing of material after the designers have gone through the job and have chosen on certain materials. So whether it's paper or polymers, there are going to be some demands on the technical specifications of the material, for example, in terms of films of polymers, or in terms of paper and board, maybe demands for certain kinds of certification. Today, if you're a large FMCG or food company, you actually want to know where the fibers have come from, how are they collected, under what conditions. Because your brands actually are your brands represent certain things to the consumers, and you don't want to lose out on the promise that the brands have made. So we very often get into, how our fibers are made. We may have to get into certifications as to how we trace the fibers and use in the product. Traceability, of course, is very, very important here. And there are a lot of regulatory impacts, for example, which are coming on where you do and what kind of material that you do. So you also need to know, for example, if you're involved in LCA studies and carbon quotient, as to, which vendors do you procure from? Are they best located? And, how do they contribute to the overall green life cycle of the product? So brands, as manufacturing, about image and perception. Then finally, when you come to the distribution side, okay, our board goes to the printer converter normally. So there is a certain amount of unitization and savings that can happen. There's also a certain amount of productivity that can get transferred depending on how you pack, and then transfer it to the printer and what it matters to him. Then there are design choices on retail, for example, which is mainly to do with the print and finishing side of the business, but some of it may also relate with respect to the safety. For example, if you are exporting a lot of products to Europe or to the US, you have to have the FDA certification in case of pharma and, say, food products. You also have EC regulations and directives, which now keep coming out with warnings or advisories on whether we're using, say, some item like benzophenone in our process, and then you have to do a full check on your process and see whether all your products are using benzophenone or without benzophenone, or produce a batch without that. Benzophenone anyway normally comes in curing UV polymers, so it's more a product of the print, but there are so many chemicals that you use in paperboard making, or some plasticizer which you may use, for example, in processing a polymer. You have to have the traceability fully in your kind of system. So product appeal with consumers. So I think in India now we are seeing, for example, a lot more of the regulations come into effect. The government has set up a Food Standard Safety Authority of India. It's at the moment going to, the people who make and deliver the food. There will be some impact on packaging as we go along, and packaging directives are becoming more important. About a month back, the HP government, there has been this municipal corporations in India, for example, banning plastic of thin gauge and litter, and sometimes it extends beyond, without knowing as to what protective factors of packaging which polymers meet and which cannot be satisfied by other forms of packaging. So there are a lot of forces at play. And then finally, there is a waste disposal. So although Shyam Sundar mentioned that as a printer, as a HP Indigo printer, he wouldn't want to waste any print, it is inevitable in any process, and that is going to be a recovery. What is the best method of recovery has to be kind of decided. So paper and paperboards are renewable materials, so if you laminate them with something, yes, there are issues, but otherwise you can recover most of the paper and paperboard. So this is again a bit on the design of the pack and what does a good pack evoke. So what should a pack reflect? A pack should, based on the brand category and the positioning, it should reflect premiumness or upward mobility, or it should also contain information on exact weight and date. The bottom side is what actually a brand evokes in a consumer. This is actually out of a study that we did some time back with a Bangalore-based motivational research company which went into this. So we were looking at our various substrates of paper and paperboard and what do they evoke finally in terms of a final consumer pack, and this is what came out. So confidence and trust, desire to purchase, curiosity sometimes, value for money. So it depends. I mean, we make boards which are called recycled greyback or recycled whiteback. A lot of times when we discuss with printers, all they would be able to, or the designers, for example, all they would be able to say is, there's a board which is white on one side and black on the other side, and there's a board which is white on both sides. And I had that recently even with somebody here. So when you are in the industry, you know the business as someone, your own business you know from inside out. But the people outside, and this is a problem which paperboard manufacturers, the printers and converters would have, they don't have such knowledge. So they would look at it only as white or black or whatever attracts them. So I think there's a lot of gap to be covered between designers and the people who supply the substrates, if I might say. Someone much older than me and wiser than me said the message is the medium. It's never like that. It's the design which is the medium, and it's the graphics which is the medium. The medium has not been the message, sorry. Okay, these are traditional functions of packaging: protect, promote, inform, convenience, unitization, brand image. All that has been covered by the previous panel extremely well, so I'll not dwell on it. Some of the newer functions, regulatory aspects are increasing all across, whether it's India, Europe, or the USA. So what ingredients you use in your materials are becoming important, the health information. Some of the fair trade aspects of how we employ labor could be important. For example, we are certified for FSC chain of custody and even for some of our plantations on forestry management. And in India, you don't have the Western model of plantations. So we don't own plantations. We are not allowed management control. And therefore, what we do is farm forestry or social forestry. You sell clones to farmers and you buy them back through a government-mediated auction mechanism from individual agricultural market committees. But if the FSC person were to come and say, and he visited a few farmer plots and found, say, kids working there, he would say, look, you're violating one of the principal directives in a place where we don't have management control. So there are a lot of issues here. Indonesia, Southeast Asia, for example, allow management control of land to industry, and it's probably easier to do that. But there are regulatory restrictions, even for the product level certifications that we carry, which are becoming important. Statutory symbols, they are present in some finer grades of papers, but there are publisher databases. For example, there are some Nordic Swan and other kind of product-related regulations based on recycled fiber. GFTN or WWF, which is now beyond wildlife actually, and they have actually what is called check your product scorecard. So there are different grades of paper and paperboard with competing manufacturers can independently get audited by an auditor specified by WWF, and you can actually post your scores, and these scores basically cover the life cycle of the product based on energy, water consumption, any hazardous chemicals and stuff like that, and including the bleaching process, chlorine and its impact. And then you post the thing. So Indian companies would score good, we also score good, we are comparable to European or Scandinavian manufacturers. Where we would fail is on energy content. We use energy from coal. India is going to be like that for the next 10-15 years, so our carbon intensity is pretty high. Because mills abroad have plantation and forests of their own, they can collect all the dried wood and the chipper, the dust or whatnot which is there, which falls from the trees, and they can actually burn. So we are today, for example, 50% based out of renewable energy. Mills in Europe, or the better mills in Europe, would probably be 70 or 80%. That's the only difference between us and them. So then you have environmental and sustainability issues, or product pack ratios, right weighting or light weighting. What are the measures? What disposal do you do? So the end product disposal also can we do. So when we work with large companies like Tetra Pak, and there have been quite a few examples around Tetra Pak, and my presentation will also carry one or two, we are involved with them actually as a system. And the waste from the factory which is non-laminated, we take back and use. And we even work with them with the polylaminated waste at times, because we can remove the poly in one of our recycled mills and just use the fiber. So there are a lot of things like that we do. We also have started, at least in southern India, as a mechanism, a wealth out of waste campaign, which is mainly out of Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Coimbatore, Chennai, because our recycled board mills are either near Coimbatore or in Hyderabad, where we collect the waste and take it back and do. So this is something that we do. Just like Europe and USA have mechanisms where brand owning companies or packaged good companies have to get involved in waste collection. The government in India has made directives. Plastic Waste Management Directive actually says for disposal of plastic, brand owning companies have to contribute. But the mechanism for working with the municipal corporations or an all India agency has not come out. So we all continue merrily like that. But these are all, I think, what do they say, the common cause or whatnot, which one day will actually come inside and be a cost to somebody within the system. Now they're externalized at the moment, but tomorrow it will come in. And therefore recovery or the amount you recycle is going to become more and more important. So other trends, online shopping. So in online shopping, the package itself matters to the consumer a bit more than if you're on a retail store and picking up packs, where there are other aspects which lead you to which brand you should choose. So in online shopping, you see it on the web page and then the package comes to you. And if you want to be a repeat shopper at Myntra.com or any of these hundreds of e-shopping, e-commerce sites which have come along, I think the packaging has to be slightly different. It serves both as a primary and as a secondary package in trying to influence the consumer. So you would go into different choices of whatever paper board you use and whatever effects you want to get. Then the shelf-ready packaging, so with more modern format retail and more food and groceries likely to come into India, what it essentially means is the primary packaging that you would use, a corrugated box or with a white top itself, with some slight structural or opening change, serves a tray on the shelf. And therefore you can pick the products from that. And you save a little bit on packaging, it's more efficient. You have standards of this in Europe, so if standards develop in India, then it will probably lead to better impact on the shelf and maybe less energy or material being spent throughout the system. Okay, this is an example which has come. Many people have got a Tetra Pak. So the picture that you see on the left is the fruity pack as it existed in the mid-80s. So just to relate it to what happened to paper and paperboard, those days Tetra Pak was they used to convert at Hindustan Packaging Corporation, Itola near Baroda. And they were not present in India. They came into India again in 96, 97 and started their own factory. But till then, it was produced on a system called TBA-10. The filling machines were slower. The main seam of the package used to be on the side, the smaller portion of the side. And the filling rate was much lower. Now you are aware of this, the tetrahedral kind of pack which is here, and also the slim packs. So the Indian market, for example, is mainly a portion pack market for juices. And the slim packs have really taken off. And part of the change has been that in the slim packs, you will see that the main seam is along the main face of the panel. But it led to a saving of 2 to 3% by weight of board. And the board had to move up in terms of composite stiffness from something called 65 millinewtons bending force to 80 millinewtons. So in all that, they had to work with us. Because they have a set of global standards and they came into India, we had to actually develop a board which ran through their lines. And the process there would be that, the print is Flexo process. They of course have a design department and they work with Parlays and others. They do a lot of marketing and show examples and case studies actually of products which worked in Brazil, Thailand or similar emerging markets, and then get customers in India interested, the brand owners. So we had to develop a board which was then thinner, saved the material, which was also more stiffer, had to print on Flexo process. When they were earlier there, it was only Flexo. So when they came later to India in 97, 98, it was a Flexo process, which meant that the quality would be very close to offset at least. So today that's where they are. Our main market is still for portion pack. 70-80% of the volume that are packed in India is juice and it's mostly in portion pack, and then there's a milk at the top. So this is how the pack evolved, and this is what happened between, over a period of time as the pack changed. Their consumer direction also changed. Earlier it was mainly at kids, and now it's an impulse kind of drink and promoted across, and you get everywhere.
Couple of minutes.
How many more? Okay, so here Chakravarti is involved. He's already demonstrated the lower pack, so I'll not waste further time. So eco-bliss packaging also meant that you could actually use a recycle board and fold it and make a card. Easy to open, as he said, easy to remove. And also the cap could be separated from the board, and therefore both the cap and the board were clearly recyclable. An example of premium liquor carton. Okay, the two brand examples here are the same because I couldn't get the packs, but I think you get the general idea. The square shaped pack moved to the round shaped canister. This is an innovation because normally you would get a tube and then get a separate coated paper, laminated, and longer time to market. This was made on a board which is heat sealable and could actually be assembled with the end caps and closures at one of the factories of the liquor companies here. So flexural rigidity of the board had to be higher, sealability had to be there, and there was light weighting. Ice cream cartons, an example. Actually, we have cartons somewhere, but moving from a tub to a large-shaped carton. So once again, a virgin board with food-grade barrier coating, treated for deep freeze so that moisture doesn't condense and the board doesn't become soggy, and sealed using hot melt glue or heat sealing, and the board should be able to withstand, the composite board should be able to withstand up to say -40. So suitable for any cold or frozen packaging now which is available in the Indian market. A food packaging is window, another example of a bit of display between paperboard and the window. So what were the challenges here? The challenges were to design for low temperature again. Trouble-free runnability of window patching is always a slightly difficult process when you have a converter friends will tell you. And since it contains cheese or butter inside, you need to have some amount of grease and oil resistance on the inside of the board so that it doesn't stain through. And of course, the printability which comes with the board, which is very smooth, and the necessary strength properties which should be there. This is an example for the Japanese market. Now, all of us drink tea, and we would have bought these cartons, 50, 25, 100s, and taken the tea bags out. But tea, coffee, for example, are very sensitive to aroma. And one of the companies here was using an outer pack which was made of the right kind of board with the right organoleptic properties, as we say, flavor, fragrance not getting mixed. But inside they're using partitions out of a cheaper recycled board, and it got rejected there. So we had to develop a special board for the partition without any brightening agent, and which met the requirements of aroma for the Japanese market, and then developed to them. So different aspects of how design gets converted to a need for the market or for a customer segment are highlighted in these examples. This is of course from my own company. So cigarette packs have changed over the years. You're not allowed to advertise all that you know. So the pack is the main way you actually try to retain loyalty of the smoker or whatnot. And technology has changed because cigarette companies can afford to spend a bit. So the caliper has consistently reduced. The stiffness has consistently gone up. The speeds in the packing lines have gone up from wherever 100 to 150 from a shell and slide as you used to have in the 70s or 80s to the hinge lid packs that you get now. So all that is tremendous improvement on the packing filling lines and in the brand graphics. So it's all gravure. It's now 8-color gravure with a lot of finishes. The cutting, for example, would be rotary die cutting. Maybe a friend from Bob's would get a bit on that. All that meant that the board had to be configured and engineered. So here board really is a very engineered item. And now you have the new contour packs. So you can see a lot of cigarette packs with beveled edges or the round corner edges which are there.
Time up.
I think you need 2 more minutes. So in general, just to give you a glimpse of how paperboards have evolved, the smoothness, for example, has met up with newer and newer printing processes require very high smoothness. So up to 1 or below 1, 0.7, 0.6 in PPS, Parker print surface roughness in microns we can go to. Lightweighting between old grayback boards in the 80s and what you can get now, you can see there's a 20-25% improvement in terms of the grammage for the same stiffness. The slide on the right hand side just shows you that even in paper boards like polymer, there's some amount of engineering which you can do in order to hold register and to develop newer paper boards or contour packs. These are how the properties are changed. The most recent emerging properties are paper and paper boards. And finally, we believe brand packaging should deliver both choice, premium, and loyalty. Thank you.